Meine Damen und Herren, Freitagnachmittag.
Ladies and gentlemen, Friday afternoon. As Mr. Linke just said, for those of you who are still around, that the big output range is the decisive one. If you consider the fact that the total volume of energy in households is also consumed in industrial areas, but this is focused on fewer facilities, but it's the same amount of fuel. So let me briefly tell you something about facilities in the higher output range, let's say between 100 and 36 megawatt, according to our definition. Let me tell you which modernizations are there for, which possibilities are there for modernization. Well, we find ourselves at the very bottom, large boilers and firing technology up to 36 megawatt. That's where we are residing. That's the structure of the BDH. Firing technology and heat generators can be seen in the middle and towards the right, and that is my topic today. Energy consumption broken down to areas of use. Well, this shows that process heat, which we want to consider now, amounts to 21% as compared to building and room heating. Electricity and mobility range above 20%, but process heat amounts to about 1/5 of the entire energy consumption. The efficiency structure in the smaller output range is shown there, but the range which has not been considered for the larger ones looks similar, but the red part of the pie is important because it indicates that many facilities also in industry are running in an inefficient way. The integration of renewable energy is a bit more difficult there because you need totally different temperature conditions. Those are the facilities we want to talk about here. For each area of use, there are firing equipment, be it classical heat generation to the top left-hand corner in large building units. In this case, an example from China, or right there at the bottom in agriculture, or in the paper industry. These are all examples of facilities just to illustrate how large the portfolio is for higher output. Here, a breakdown of waste disposal, chemical industry, traffic and transport, the Federal Railway. They need to heat their stations, the airports need to be heated, and that is normally done with large boilers and firing stations. Here, the fair halls also need to be heated. And of course, hot water needs to be prepared. There is a pent-up demand for modernization in the commercial field, and we have been asking ourselves what can be done in order to improve efficiency. If you only translate the state of the art into practice, whatever you see here amongst the burner and boiler makers and all the other ones, all these technologies are available, but they need to be used too. So we have reflected upon these aspects in order to reach the ambitious energy savings goals and CO2 emission reduction goals of the federal government. So we don't only consider private households, but also industry. Here, the basic figures, the output range from 100 to 36 megawatt. That's what we have considered. We have tried to produce meaningful figures, which is not so easy because in contrast to households, there's no chimney sweep statistics. So we had to use the registration figures of the technical inspection boards. We also have a large burner statistical figure. For boilers, it is more difficult because we cannot produce statistical figures because there are too few manufacturers in that field. But there is quite a reliable figure of 300,000 firing stations in this output range of 100 to 36 megawatt. The facilities are mostly older than 10 years. We normally take the year 2000, which is already 15 years past. But as of 2000, important technical changes have taken place. Digitalization of the control units has taken place. So everything installed before the year 2000 normally doesn't correspond to the state of the art anymore. That amounts to about 250,000 stations which run in an inefficient manner and which need to be raised to the state of the art. And that's what we have calculated. Here, the breakdown of these facilities. Don't take the figure as a figure. It's a rough figure based on estimates. But the figures are meaningful nevertheless. About 220,000 facilities in charge of heating, that's the majority. About 16,000 steam boilers and 16,000 process-related facilities like thermal processors, which also are operated with our burners and boilers. And in sum total, this amounts to these 250,000 facilities and stations. Now, I'll show you in a minute how the results are achieved, but let me mention them straight away. 810,000 liters per year could be saved with such truck sizes. This means about 37,000 trucks, and this is the distance from Messe Frankfurt to the Reichstag in Berlin. One tank truck behind the other one could be saved per year. In natural gas, it's about 4.5 billion cubic meters. Since I come from Stuttgart, well, let me mention that there's a gasometer with a certain cubic meter volume, and if you take that one, you can build a tower with a height of 102 meters, and if you rework it, it takes you to a height of 150 kilometers if you stack one on top of the other. The nitric oxide emissions could be reduced by about 35,000 tons on top of the CO2 savings based on today's state of the art. Since we also talk about the electrical output efficiency, this can also be reduced. There's a power station standing in Düsseldorf with 400 megawatt. You see an aerial picture of the power plant. No, it's even next door, so I've chosen another picture. That one is near Hanau, just outside Frankfurt. Well, this means 3.3% of the entire fuel consumption. In natural gas, it's 4.6% because there are more such stations running on gas. And in terms of final energy, it's 175 petajoule, which corresponds to 2% of the entire energy consumption in Germany. CO2 savings can be realized. We compared it to building consumption reduction. Since 2006, respective subsidization has been provided for buildings in order to save CO2. That amounts to 3.2 million tons. But in this output range, it is 5 times as much if we were to do something in that regard. Regarding electricity, it's similar. We have photovoltaics, which is highly subsidized. Each consumer of electric power, each user of electric equipment has to contribute. And these subsidizations amounted to 2.4 million units, which were saved. Here, the saving in the large firing stations is several times that much. Even a third of the NOx burden could be reduced in all industrial processes. Now, what are the measures to be applied for that purpose? Well, here it's broken down to burners and boilers. Available technologies, modulating burners can be seen here on the fair everywhere. With digital firing management, that's what I said before. Digitalization has made its way as of 2000. And I think there's hardly any boiler maker anymore without a digital firing management. Revolutions regulation, that is also stipulated by the EU. There's still another EU project to make the burner motors more efficient, those which have not yet been integrated in the pertinent programs, and burner optimizing controls with two CO monitoring devices are also available. In some processes, the burning air preheating is available. It doesn't function in each one because it needs the respective framework conditions for air heating, but there considerable amounts of fuel can be saved if the preheated exhaust gases are used to preheat the burning air. In the boilers, it's simply the substitution of the entire firing station in order to take it to the modern state of the art. That is the most expensive and sometimes the most difficult measure. Because if a firing station in an industry process or in a boiler house is available, then this may create problems with space. The boiler house needs a certain size, and the modern boilers are a little bit larger because the hot air burden is reduced, and thus a longer boiler is needed, which means that you are cramped for space. But you can retrofit heat exchangers, economizers, or you can use heat exchangers which are in charge of line-like cooling in boilers. The control unit, monitoring unit is also a digital process, and you can control several boilers according to the demands. Before it used to be in, out, now you can modulate it and you can add or switch off boilers according to the needs and take everything to the degree of efficiency needed. Anticipating energy generation management is also feasible. A weather forecast is integrated in the process. And if cold weather is forecast for tomorrow, the control unit, knowing that it will be cold tomorrow, adjusts itself and brings up the facilities gradually, or the other situation given, it works to the contrary. In order to also get political support for this project, we've also made our efforts, because when we had an appointment in the Federal Economics Ministry, those gentlemen were quite irritated to hear that they had forgotten these industrial processes when considering CO2 emissions. They almost fell off their chairs. Not we wanted something bad from them, but it was simply forgotten. So with the DENA, which has launched an energy campaign, we have cooperated and we've produced the study of which we have presented the results. This has also been published jointly, and you can see the publication here. Another issue is the so-called MCP directive from Brussels. It means the Medium Combustion Plant Directive. A directive, like all the other ones, need to be transposed into national law as well, and thus the members have a say. That may be positive or negative, because if the member states don't have a strong interest in energy efficiency measures, maybe also for economical reasons, like countries in Eastern Europe, then the requirements are lower. Germany has high requirements and is a pioneer in that regard, and therefore we have a more enhanced legislation. The draft directive is now under discussion in Brussels. The Council of the Member States has already included it and adopted it in its discussion forum. Parliament is discussing and deliberating at the moment regarding minor amendments. Then there are further requirements. There's also talk about the environmental directive in Brussels, considering measures for larger output ranges, in this case for 1 to 50 megawatts. All fuels are being considered, all emission requirements, but that shall become valid for new stations as of 2018 only. That is to say, in 3 years' time. For existing facilities, and this is new in the respective directive, there are also stipulations, and those are to be considered as of 5 megawatt as of 2025. Hence, each station running in Europe as of 5 kW will be examined, and it needs to be taken to the state of the art and the emission provisions of the directive. Smaller stations from 1 to 5 megawatts still have a little bit more time. 2030 is the proposal of Commission and Council, for that matter. We would like to see it earlier on behalf of industry, in order to adopt the measures which are already available and to make use of all the existing possibilities earlier. Well, so much regarding the cooperation with DENA and the pertinent project. We have considered examples considering the situation before and after, and we have proven that the measures are functioning. Here, the brochure, which is available here, to be taken away. There are representative examples you find in this. CO2 reduction potentials can be seen there. There's the Grundfos company, also present here on the fair. They undertook a modernization measure, and after upgrading the boiler, they achieved an improvement of 479 tons per year with an amortization return on capital of 20%. The Bavarian State Brewery, Weinstefan, you can see the example also in the special edition of Die Welt, has done much more because they've undertaken many more measures. Further examples are the Pulka Chemicals, Rital, but you can see that all these improvements are paying because the return on capital is very high. Further examples is a mineral water company, a hospital, a production site, and last but not least, the Westfalenhalle in Dortmund, which needs a lot of energy to heat their halls. And for that purpose, a new concept has also been established.
Wichtig bei der ganzen Angelegenheit mit der DENA war auch, dass man eine entsprechende Beratung bekommt. Denn woher will jetzt ein Unternehmer in seinem Bereich wissen oder ein Krankenhausdirektor wissen, was alles machbar ist? Und dazu ist eine entsprechende Energieberatung möglich und die wird auch entsprechend gefördert. Ich habe hier mal die entsprechende Homepage verlinkt und dort kann man sich entsprechende Energieberater Namen, Adressen herunterladen. Das Fazit, ich komme jetzt zum Schluss des Ganzen. Das Einsparpotenzial, was wir als gesetzlich vorgegeben haben in Deutschland, ist 12 bis 13% Primärenergie möglich durch industrielle Feuerungen. Das heißt, im Gebäudebereich sind es 40% insgesamt zusammengerechnet. Die CO2-Minderungspotenziale, wenn man noch Biogas und Bioöl berücksichtigt würde, also erneuerbare Energien, die verfügbar sind, sie kommen noch zusätzlich 120 Millionen Tonnen CO2 hinzu. Das heißt, wenn man das im Vergleich zur Photovoltaik, die ja sehr stark gefördert wird, betrachtet, mit 2,4 Millionen Tonnen ist das eine ganz andere Hausnummer. Hier gibt es Fördermaßnahmen, aber auch für die industriellen Maßnahmen gibt es Fördermaßnahmen, aber eher in Richtung Beratung. Wir müssen noch viel mehr tun. Leider ist auch hier im größeren Leistungsbereich sehr große Zurückhaltung vorhanden, was die Umsetzung der Möglichkeiten anbetrifft. Wir als Industrie hoffen, dass eben diese Richtlinie aus Brüssel hier auch wieder einen entscheidenden Impuls geben könnte. Aber wie gesagt, die Zeiten, die Sie gesehen haben, bei Neuanlagen ab 2018, bei vorhandenen Anlagen erst ab 2025 oder ab 2030, ich denke, man könnte schon früher starten. Die deutschen Ergebnisse, das will ich auch nochmal unterstreichen, können praktisch auch auf andere EU-Staaten umgesetzt werden. Ich bin auch im Europäischen Verband tätig und die Kollegen aus den anderen Mitgliedstaaten haben keine solchen Studien gemacht. Also wir sind die Einzigen, die es da gemacht haben, aber auch hier gibt es entsprechende Ansätze, diese Möglichkeiten auszunutzen. Hier nochmal die Tafel, die Sie gleich gegenüber hier diagonal nochmal sehen, wo das alles nochmal versucht wurde, auf einer kurzen, knappen Tafel zusammenzufassen. Ja, meine Herren, muss ich jetzt sagen, vielen Dank für Ihre Aufmerksamkeit. Wenn Sie Fragen haben, gerne.